People deluded. I'm back again. I have a special guest. I asked everybody on which content creators I should look out to collab with, and your name was high on the list, Jess. So I'm happy to have you here. How you doing? Good morning over there.
I'm good. I'm good. A busy morning, but I'm happy to be here to talk to you about Arsenal and all the news. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. Just as a backlog, could you let anyone who doesn't know about yourself of your content and what you do?
Yeah, you guys. So, I have a channel called She Knows Arsenal. I do my own show just talking about Arsenal, basically. What else? I talk about it from my perspective, try to give you good analysis. From my perspective. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at it's Jessinho or at She Knows Arsenal. And yeah, so you have to go to see what I'm all about. It's hard to describe because it's really just from my perspective, but yeah, so I talk about Arsenal all day long.
That's fantastic to know. And as you can see, people, check out the pinned message because I've put her details related to her YouTube channel in the description. So please make sure the subscribers are going up. Unfortunately, we have to talk about Arsenal, though. I say unfortunately because we just spoke off air about we'd like to be talking about Fulham, but there's this Super League business. So what is your take on this Super League stuff?
Well, actually, I'd like to be laughing at Spurs about sacking Mourinho, but now
Too,
we don't get
you're
to
right on
really
that.
talk about that. But yeah, the whole Super League thing, I had my initial meltdown about it months ago when it was first kind of talked about as something that they were pushing for because of the pandemic. And so hearing about it yesterday was more of just like confirmation of, yeah, this is really going down. They're really pushing for it. And I think some people were maybe disappointed by my lack of capitulation. I really just needed more information. I wanted to see what kind of happened when the dust settled and got more information about what was actually going down. And basically for me, it just looks like, negotiations by two big, basically the powers that be. And they're on two completely different sides of the spectrum. And at some point they will come to, I won't call it a happy medium, but they will negotiate some sort of, situation for both parties to benefit from this. But it's just unfortunate because it's playing out in front of the fans, and the fans are having to feel the emotions of feeling like the game that they love more than anything is being ripped apart. And it's true. The way that football is, the way that we know it from today, it won't be like that ever again, because once it becomes Americanized, I can tell you from experience of growing up watching the NFL and the NBA, it's all about money and it's not about sport. It really is entertainment. And it's unfortunate, the repercussions of this and the trickle down effect is going to be horrendous, so I feel kind of embarrassed about it because being American, you almost feel like, it's almost like you take it on a little bit. We spend a lot of our time trying to be accepted and feel like we're actually a part of this community, not feeling like a shitty American all the time, if I can say that. And they kind of just threw us back, they took us back and they reset it. And so my stance on it really is I don't like it, and I just want people to know, like, I couldn't be any more disappointed in the Cronkies and all the owners that have pretty much shat on football as it is.
That's very condemned since hearing it from you, and it's quite upsetting. Like, I'm struggling for words. I wanted to press you on that because you took the words out of my mouth in terms of the American route. What does that actually involve? Because when, as an outsider, someone from London, when I hear that, I hear big franchising, just the big and the best. It becomes a monopoly. Arguably, it becomes a sort of mafia for just where only a couple people benefit from the fruits of such labor. So is that firmly where it is? Because when you look at the money aspect, you actually get more money just for being in it than actually winning it. And it's something like that is quite appalling.
Yeah, that's essentially what they want. It's really the transformation from true sport, which is about winners and losers, right? It's when you lose big, and it is what it is, and you rebuild. They want to take it from pure sport, which is why we love the England football or English football, and change it to pure entertainment, which is, it looks like sport, to the naked eye. You're looking at it, you're like, okay, they're playing the game, it looks like it, but there's no jeopardy involved. And when there's no jeopardy, it's not sport at all. It's just entertainment. That's essentially what it is. And you'll get your every once in a while a true athlete or a true competitor, like like a LeBron James or something like that. I guess the equivalent to that would be like maybe a Ronaldo, or something like that. that will come in and will do everything they can to win it, and it'll be exciting for a second, but it won't be what we know it as now. The Premier League, what's really good about it is that everybody comes into the competition at the beginning of the season in September and feels like they have something to play for, whether it's, escaping relegation or,
there's hope, basically.
Yeah, there's hope for everybody. It won't be like that ever again. And Americanized sports is really about the elite staying elite. And if you buy into it, you want to have assurances about how much money you're going to have or how much money you're going to make. And when there's jeopardy involved, there's relegation and qualification, you can't insure a certain amount of money. And that's basically what the Cronkies want. They want to know that they don't have to put any of their own money into Arsenal and it'll be sustainable, but they'll also, and they'll also be able to print money, because that's basically what they'll be able to do. It's going to be like printing money, so that's the American sports model, and it's not good for the football fan, but it's good for them. And that's ultimately all they care about.
Would you say you feel even more for Arsenal? Because you just said it there. It's like they don't really have to put anything into it. And we both know they use Arsenal somewhat as collateral. When you look at the big leagues and the big stuff, do you see Arsenal regressing a bit more? And like Kroenke's just getting bigger and bigger, basically, is all I got from that.
I mean, I see us getting slapped every week. I think that's essentially what it is. We're paying to get slapped,
It's unfortunately true, yeah.
It is. We're not ever, if you look at their franchises in America, they're never really concerned about, winning, because they don't have to
that breaks my heart.
Yeah, we will never actually be like competing for anything. Like, we're just going to be the team that's towards the bottom, but the Cronkies will always make the money that they know that they're going to have, so it's disheartening just because we haven't been competitive to our standards for a very long time. A lot of it having to do with the Cronkies, but I mean, it's not going to get any better. It's just going to be the difference between getting slapped by Man City to being slapped by Barcelona and Juventus. It's going to be the same thing, so I'm not really looking forward to it, to be honest.
To play devil's advocate, would you say with literally £3.5 billion just being given to you for the sake of it and everything else is a plus, could you see a future where Arsenal could invest significantly and probably look to match up like you mentioned, Barcelona, probably have a squad of that standard, or is that living in a fantasy?
I think we will be able to improve. We should be able to, fans that are looking to bring in Grealish or bring in Aouar and players like that. Yeah, we'll have players like that on our books. We will, but so will Barcelona. So the prestige of certain clubs, I still think, will trump, wanting to be a part of Arsenal. So I think we'll get closer, but it's just going to be a bunch of super teams playing against each other. That's essentially what the NBA is, right? They get together and create super teams and go for it that year. That's what it'll be. There'll be a lot of more trading. Players will jump from teams to teams. You think it's bad now that they only stay at teams for 2 or 3 seasons. They'll stay for a season and then jump over to Juventus, then jump over to Real Madrid, because that's what they'll be able to do. Wow. So we'll get the money, and we'll be better than Leicester and West Ham, and we'll create space between, because that's essentially what they're trying to do, is make sure that the Leicesters of the world can't catch us up.
Yeah.
But
we can just keep a parallel.
But does it really matter?
No, because we're just existing as a football club. We're half winning. Like, even at a point this season, did we not have identical wins to losses? You see a bit of things to be positive. You see half a dozen negatives. That's the sort of club we're at. I'm a bit ignorant, and I've left that question up for a while. Could you shed light on it for us in the UK? He has said, in relation to what you said, he said, this is why Americans prefer college sports. Now, to me, I have no clue what that means.
Because there's no money involved in it. There's no money involved in it. And it's basically just, you support a team and you support them whether they win or lose. And there's no, real interest in it, no gain for elite or rich people to get an edge on it. Now, they are trying to get to a point where they're paying these college athletes. And that's when it'll become problematic, because then it'll become, who can pay the best players the most.
Okay.
So there's also there's corruption in there where, they recruit players and they give them special things and all that kind of stuff. But in the grand scheme, it's the purest form of sport in America, in general. There's no other interest that can be exploited, so I agree with that. That's why people like watching, college football and college basketball, because it still feels like sport. Whereas NBA, it's just entertainment, really.
That's very sad. I meant to ask you as well, because I look at the NFL. I remember it was a lot of there's obviously more interest in the NFL over here now, but I remember it was really just on Sky Sports. Then it was like once in a while special events in England, and then it's like every week they're here in England. Like Tottenham Hotspur have a partnership. Could you see the Super League going to America, because American owners franchise? Surely there's going to be semi-finals, potentially a final along the way out of Europe.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Dubai, stuff like that. That's what it's going to be. They'll be selling like those tickets or whatever, where there'll be thousands of dollars plus airfare and all that kind of stuff, because their whole thing is trying to maximize the amount of money. And so when you get a certain city or whatever to sponsor your event, then it's just a cash cow. So I can definitely see like a final of this European Super League or whatever in LA, in Miami, in Dubai, and making it, because really they're trying to placate the global fan, right? Yeah. They're not really thinking about the homegrown fans, the fans that actually have been around the club for decades. They're going for the new age fan that only wants to see Barcelona versus Real Madrid. They don't watch anything else, so that's really who they're placating towards. And those are the same type of fans that will spend thousands of dollars to go see Real Madrid versus Barcelona in Dubai.
And I think you're right on that, because when you look at some football fans nowadays, it's like they worship the players, not necessarily the club. So when you've got Neymar, Messi, not Neymar actually, but Messi and people of that ilk, it makes sense. What do you make of how the players are responding to this? Because I don't know where I sit personally, because on the face of it, players are kept out of the loop, and I think they are scapegoats, but they must have heard indirect things of this happening. The same for the manager. If they didn't, and we take it at face value in that Vinay's talking to them today about it, how do you, not that you can, but how would you be feeling as a player? How are they meant to react to this? Do you see some players being all for this or not wanting to do this?
I think it depends. I think players that have come to the Premier League because it has more money in it may not be as distraught over it. But I think players that have grown up in the English system and also follow lower league teams and know people in the lower leagues and understand what the trickle down effect is going to be like, I don't think they'll be happy. So I think that there'll be a spectrum of responses. I don't think it'll be one or the other. Do I think that players are going to come out and talk about it right now? No, because we're far from the end of what this is going to look like.
Finished product, yeah.
Yeah. I don't see them coming out, players like, of course, like Mesut Ozil and DJ Lovren and all these players that are not really involved in it have spoken out about it. But the players that are in and around it are not going to speak out against their employers at this point, because that's essentially what it is. They would be speaking out against their employers and talking about things that aren't complete yet. Nothing is concrete. 100%. So I don't see anybody really coming out, but I would guess that there's probably a spectrum of feelings. I wouldn't think that everybody felt the same.
Yeah. On that topic, what do you make of the threats about potentially not being able to participate at the Euros, the World Cup? There's even talk of the Olympics now, which again, I don't think is necessarily fair to the players.
Yeah, they're imploding on themselves essentially. Like, they're making threats, that aren't realistic, but it's because they're scared, because this threatens because basically UEFA has been pocketing all the money for these European competitions for a long time. And these clubs feel like they deserve more of the cut, and they understand their position because they have the brandability of the club, and they also have the players that they can take out of these competitions immediately. So, UEFA or whoever, is saying that they're not gonna be able to participate in these type of competitions. I think it's just, we're on this side and you're on this side and we're both throwing shots. We don't really mean any of this stuff, like, oh, well, we'll start our own World Cup. That's what I think Perez said that yesterday. None of that stuff is really going to happen. They're just throwing shots. It's high stakes negotiation that's playing out in front of the fans. And, this is going to look really, really different, eventually.
When do you see it? When do you see clarity over this? Because there's a lot of hot smoke. We did know it was coming, but nobody expected a Monday of this. Like, when do you think we're going to see some concrete evidence as to how this is playing out?
Well, they said that the initial idea for this was they wanted to start running it in 2023, and then yesterday when they started throwing shots at each other, Perez then said he wanted to start as soon as August. So I don't think it'll I think this is going to take a long time because this could potentially be a legal battle.
Yeah.
Teams leaving their leagues has legal ramifications, right? So I don't think this is going to be we'll know something by the summer. I think we'll get, kind of, dripped kind of like information
Bits and
about what's
bobs and whatnot.
happening. But I would say probably like maybe next summer or so, I don't think it's going to happen like right now. I think this just too big to negotiate in a couple months.
That makes sense.
Yeah. We're
What do you
talking
make of the
billions of
Premier League?
dollars.
Sorry to cut you off. What do you make of the Premier League threats about getting rid of the top six? Because away from it just being probably lies and emotional talk, I don't think it will work. Morally, I think there's every reason to kick them out. But suddenly you lose Kevin De Bruyne, you lose half of these teams. And with all due respect to the remaining teams left in, they're not selling shirts. Nobody's necessarily paying to watch these players. The demand isn't there. Not only do you lose the big games and the big players, you lose the occasional cup upsets and the upsets in the league domestically. So what do you see? Do you actually could you see that going through, or is it just lies again?
No, I don't think it'll go through. I think they will. It's just all threats right now to just show how kind of where they stand on this whole thing. And I think the Premier League has to say that. They can't say we're openly negotiating with the European Super League and da. They have to condemn it. They have to, so I think they'll come to some sort of agreement. I don't think they'll be able to, sustain that because it hurts them more than it hurts the clubs that are out of the competition, and I think if they're honest with themselves, they know like they need to have these clubs in that league to make it what it is, so I don't see it happening. I think we will be in the Premier League next season. We'll be also a part of a European Super League that's closed off with no, some people will be able to, qualify for it, but we can never be out of it. And it's really about how much money UEFA gets, because that's the other part that people don't take into consideration, that this European Super League needs to be ran by somebody. It can't be ran by the clubs. So they need UEFA to come to some sort of agreement. So it's about the dollar amount. How much do the club get and how much do UEFA get, and then they'll come to some sort of agreement.
When you put it like that, there isn't anything more to say. But on that, what do you make of Arsenal's involvement in it?
We got to be in it, don't we? They know that they're not going to put any money into this club. They're desperate. We're on a slippery slope. We see we're in 9th and we've been in 9th. We're mid-table, and
We're nice. You're being nice.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, they know that they're never going to put in the amount of money. We all know that in order for us to be solid in top 4 next season, the amount of money that we'd have to be spent would be like 200 million or so just to be comfortable. They're never going to spend that, and they don't want to have to continue to spend to get us there only to maybe fail. So they want something concrete that they can count on.
Safe.
So yeah, so I can see why we're probably they're probably back there sweating, trying to make this thing happen because they know it's do or die for them. We don't deserve to be in it based on where we are at the moment. But I know that there's a lot of people that are like, you guys are in 9th. Why would you deserve to be in it? Well, our global reach is bigger than Leicester's. It's bigger than some of these other teams. And that's all it's really about. It's about the brand, and our brand is bigger, so we deserve to be in it based on that. But the club's involvement is not shocking to me or anything like that. I think we're one of probably the loudest voices in the room because we need it more than probably some of the other clubs, to be honest.
When you put it like that, once again, that's facts. Do you reckon, with that being said, where do you reckon Arsenal's relationship with fans are now at? Because the fans haven't been at the grounds. Maybe if they were allowed at the grounds, especially on this news, we'd be a bit more vocal. And obviously, we've been poor in a sporting perspective.
I would imagine that the relationship with the fans, is almost non-existent at this point. We couldn't feel any further away from the club and any less of a priority at this point.
100%.
Think about, just this summer with Gunnar Soros and the 55 redundancies,
Facts.
And how bad that looked and how the fans just constantly were saying that this is not the club that we know and love. And I think the last couple of years, we've really lost our compass and we don't know what direction we're going in. We think it's still the classy Arsenal that we know, but it's definitely not. And I think that this kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. And, it's the penny is really dropping. This is not the club that we that we know and love, and it's completely different. It's a business. It's been a business for a while, but we were still in top four, and it was still okay.
There's a lot
But
of luxuries to hide behind.
now it's definitely a business, and a lot of the fan base doesn't resonate with that. So I see riots, I see protests, and I see a lot of backlash from this.
Will this make any change? Because again, I do think there is a famous saying by Steve Jobs, just to play devil's advocate. People say the consumer doesn't know what they want. If we might not have cars in this world if people just wanted horses, so we don't know where we're at. Is there a way of fans just getting over this? Like just somehow getting over this? We might huff and puff, but eventually you kind of have no choice but to get over it. Maybe they get us on side.
I mean, so yesterday I saw a lot of fans saying that they wouldn't watch, they're not going to watch Arsenal. And I think that was the initial reaction of feeling hurt and betrayed by the club. But I think a lot of fans will watch because they love the club too much not to peek
100%.
in every once in a while. It may not feel the same. I mean, I feel like there probably was a lot of fans that felt like they wouldn't watch the Premier League when it came to fruition, years ago, from the old league. And now look, they're still watching. They're still complaining about how it's not the same. But I figured that that's pretty much what it'll be, complaining about how it's not the same, but continuing to watch. And about basically the consumer not knowing what they want. I don't know, because I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know how I'll feel about it until I actually see it. But I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be this glossy fake version of a competition that we paid our way into. Like
we don't deserve to be in there. Yeah. And we're just going to get embarrassed.
It feels fake. So I don't know. But I think fans will still watch, and we'll see what happens, because it's coming. It's going to happen.
So where does this leave you with the Europa League? Because for me, if we're still in it somehow, like the rumors were said to be false, we still have something to win. But many people are sitting there and saying it doesn't really matter now. So where does that leave you with that?
It does matter. It's a trophy, regardless of if it means money or whatever, because essentially we won't need the money. That's what people are feeling. We won't need it because we're going to buy our way into this other league, but it's still a trophy and we need it. And there's no guarantee that this league is going to start in August. That's I think Perez was just trying to force the issue yesterday. The original plans for this was a year or two from now, so from now until then, and going with the mindset that this may or may not work out the way maybe we think it is. We still need the money, and we still need to win something. A lot can happen from now until next season,
Sorry to cut you off. Do you think that fans kind of have to bend around to that idea that I know football shouldn't be a business, but it is to a degree, and Arsenal do need money? Because we were saying a lot of fans you speak to would say maybe it's best not being in Europe full stop and playing once a week. This does present us with money. And like somebody said here, I don't believe it, but he said, could it, once again, I have to ask you again, could it convince the Kroenkes to change their ways?
I think, the Kroenkes aren't going anywhere, you guys. That's the main thing. It would take a lot for them to leave, and for me, it's felt like a business for a lot longer. Essentially, once we got to the point where, we were saying top four was a trophy, that was the first indication that it was a business. Arsene was very comfortable making sure that we stayed in fourth place because he knew that the financial aspect of that for the Kroenkes was important because they didn't have to spend money. When you're in the top four, you don't have to spend money because you're getting a certain amount of money every single season. It's been a business for a long time. I think just the magnitude of this is making the penny drop for a lot of people that didn't want to believe it. But it's been a business since the Premier League came to fruition years ago. That was the whole reason, is because they wanted more commercial ability. They wanted it to be more worldwide versus just for England only, So it's been a business for a while. It's going to be tough to come to grips with that, after things kind of shake out and we see what this looks like. But the owners are not going anywhere. And as long as they're here, they're going to push for an Americanized version of football, So take it or leave it. That's pretty much where we are. And it sucks, but it's the reality.
And if it was to come about, how would you feel when it's factored into our season? Sorry, because when I look at it, it starts in August. We've got the Euros. I'm pretty sure there's a Copa America. There's probably something I'm missing out. Obviously, on top of that, we'd have Arteta, who's not really had a pre-season, and then we start in August and there's 10 games. How would you feel? What's your feelings if it does come into play and the actual practicalities of it? Because again, assuming we're allowed to play in all the domestics.
Yeah, I don't really, honestly, I don't think that my gut feeling is that it's not going to happen in August, but let's just go with the thought that it will.
Yeah.
When have these governing bodies ever gave a crap about these players and the health and wealth of these players? They played through the pandemic, they're being made to play more and more games. Look at the amount of football that we're watching. We weren't watching this amount of football before. They're just trying to create more competitions and get these guys playing as much as possible so that they can make more money. So I think if they can shove another competition in there, they will, because it's more money for them. If it did happen in August, it would be problematic because, you have the Euros there. You can't take the best players out of the Euros. That's not going to happen. So essentially you're saying you want them to start a Champions League, at the same time as playing, finishing up the Euros. You have the African Cup of Nations and the World Cup all happening in the same year. And you expect them to be able to play at a high level. We'll get more and more football. We'll be able to see more of it. It'll be more widely televised, but the product and the quality will drop. The level of the league is saturation and the quality is just going to be non-existent. I see the more that they play, the worse the competitions will become. And that's why the Premier League hasn't been that great of a watch this season. I mean, from an Arsenal perspective, it's not great because of where we are, but the games, the quality is really bad, from the referees to the actual players. And that's because they're playing too much football. So that's pretty much what it's going to be. It's just quantity over quality.
If you're Mikel Arteta, where's your head at?
Arteta's head needs to be on the Europa League. If he's thinking about this European Super League, that's not what he needs to be thinking about. He needs to be thinking about tomorrow. He needs to be thinking about figuring out how we finish out the season strong, because regardless of what's happening, this is not a reason to capitulate. And, Arsenal will find any reason not to be concentrating on the mission. The mission is to make sure that we make it to the next round of Europa League. We get to the final. So he needs to be focused on that. He wanted, maybe this is why he told Willian that he was going to be in the Champions League in the first 1 to 3 years that he was an Arsenal coach. That I'm thinking about that. I'm like, maybe he knew something that we didn't know because he knew that it was coming.
You might be onto something still, to be honest.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it is. But he should be looking at it from a perspective also that he doesn't have a good enough squad to play in that competition and do anything about it, so
right.
You're going to get battered, buddy, so but from now on, like just for at this moment, focus on the next game. The next game is Everton, then Villarreal. That's what he needs to be thinking about.
Facts, and more facts. Thank you very much for the question, TW, and I love all my members. You've said, do you think this is in part to distract us from the UCL changes, which make it a 32-team tournament? I don't see this league actually happening. That's my opinion, my guy. I just think it's just people puffing out their chests. Clearly, the clubs that have broken away are not happy with whatever initial agreements. So this is the sort of last sort of result. It's gone from a game of chicken to no, we actually have to pretend this is happening. Like Jess said earlier, I do think they will come to a middle ground and this will be resolved. But I say that it's not happened yet. I didn't think we'd get to this situation. So what do I know? It's quite crazy. And UEFA did announce some new laws. I haven't taken in what they've said. So it is what it is in that regards. So yeah,
I agree with that. I think this is all just nothing that they've been talking about is actually real. It's just about, like you said, puffing your chest out and making it known that you're not happy. But I do think that these bigger elite clubs, if that's what you want to call them, are trying to take advantage of a situation, knowing that they have leverage. So although I think they may not be happy with whatever UEFA has proposed, for the new Champions League, I think they really want a closed league and they're going to push for it as much as they possibly can and see, it's kind of like reach for the stars and see what you get, or reach for the moon, or whatever the saying is. You reach as high as you possibly can, and whatever you get under that is probably going to be good enough. So yeah.
It's quite concerning for me. What, just speaking about moving on to just football now, what do you make of Arsenal from a sporting perspective this season? And I probably know your answer, but yeah.
I think we've been very inconsistent, and to be honest, before Boxing Day, I couldn't see what the plan was because we just had lost like 8 games in a row, or we didn't win a game. And I couldn't understand what the process was at that point because I kind of understood what he was saying, but I was like, I can't see it. I can't see it, and to start out a season, Arsenal, a team of our stature should not be starting out a season with not a single creative player in the roster, and obviously that comes with Ozil things and all that kind of stuff. But, the difference between Arsenal's form pre a 10 and post a 10 just speaks volumes about how unprepared we were to start that season. And Arteta took a huge risk. And I think he suffered the consequences for it in terms of the optics of what our season looks like, but he's not really in any danger of losing his job. So I think he knew he could go 5 months without a 10 and it would be what it was. I don't think he thought he would be that close to the relegation zone, but having Smith Rowe and Odegaard has really helped him out. And now I can see at least the philosophy of what Arteta is trying to do. And I think he wants to play football the right way. That being said, I don't know if his project will ever really come to fruition because the other teams around us are getting better and they're able to get the results. And we're just so imbalanced and we have such a bad mentality that I just don't know if all the pieces will come together enough for him next season to be close to the top 4. I think we're still really far off of it. We are very mid-table, not because of what's on paper, but because we perform like a mid-table team. And that's really all that matters. So I think without significant investment, that if we don't win the Europa League, the Cronkies have to reach into their pocket and do something, because selling Nketiah and selling a player here and there is not going to do enough for us to do it. Yeah, it's not. But will they do it? I don't know. So if they don't support Arteta, he'll be gone. He'll be gone either way. Either he gets the money, they give him the players that he needs, and he doesn't perform, and then he's gone, or they won't support him and he'll be gone anyway. So my thoughts on the project overall is I don't know if it'll actually come to fruition and this Arteta ball or the way Arteta envisions the team will ever actually become what he thinks it's going to be. But I'm optimistic about what he's trying to do, but the results need to catch up. They have to catch up because it's a results-based business. And we missed out on some big points, and even against Fulham, that was one of them. Teams are dropping points, but we're not
taking advantage at all.
Yeah. So it's disappointing, but at the beginning of the season, I said after the transfer window that I thought we'd come in 8th to 10th. So
can't really be surprised where we are. Yeah, can't really be surprised. I agree with you. I just feel when you wait until the last day of the season to sign Thomas Partey, clearly you're playing chicken. An elite club signs him and also signs creativity. We had a shambles of a preseason. We did very reactive stuff in January. We're kind of lucky that we stumbled across to a degree Smith Rowe. He finally got an opportunity. We had to bring Odegaard in, so we can't really be surprised. I agree with you. There's a lot of variables that are going against Arteta to do with the culture of this club in the same way it went against Emery. But then I always feel that, on one hand, a good tradesman can only perform as good as his tools. But on the same hand, if you're not getting the best out of those tools, I have to start looking at you. And as much as I have admiration for Arteta, do you feel there's any criticisms you can directly lay blame at his door? Because at the end of the day, he is having to coach. He's just started, like you said, bringing in his football. There was a time where we were just crossing the ball against Wolves, for example.
I would say really putting a lot of his trust in players that just have been historically unreliable,
very nice way to put it. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much the main thing for me, is that I could have told you to play the kids a long time ago. And I know his thought process is, well, I don't want to, ruin their careers or give them too much responsibility early. But we've seen that once you've integrated even just a couple of them, we've been a much better side. Statistically,
young players. Yeah.
Yeah. And we need that. And, also maybe not making big decisions when he should have. He made big decisions against for Slavia Prague as well as Spurs. But I think there's a decision to be made for, the front line a lot sooner than that. we spent the first couple weeks of the season trying to force Lacazette and Aubameyang and Willian into a front line.
Yeah.
And it never worked. And it took him a long time to really veer away from that. It took him until Aubameyang was unable to play to make changes. And since he went back to that, which was against West Ham, where he tried to put Aubameyang back in and play Lacazette and him, then you're surprised that everything is kind of fallen apart since then. And now you're trying to get it back. He has to choose between Lacazette and Aubameyang, and that's the hard choice that he has to make. And I think sometimes he's made big decisions, but not consistently enough, for my liking. Just pick one or the other and just do it. Don't only when people get hurt is the only really time that the decision is made, but it's already made for you. But sit him down, sit Aubameyang down. If he's not playing well, just sit him down. It's really just do it. I don't know why it takes him so long to make decisions, and maybe in-game management hasn't been great, but
I'm so happy you said that. I was going to get on to that. Thank you.
But for me with that is I won't expect him to be good at it because he's a first-time manager.
But saying that, let me cut you off. Sorry, saying that,
to
play devil's advocate. I mean, this is where I have a bit of a disagreement because I know I agree with you wholeheartedly, but then he's done it against Klopp, he's done it against Chelsea, he's done it against City. So you clearly can do it. Like I always say, he can plan for a boxing fight. It's when he gets a different sort of punch he wasn't expecting, there's an issue. And I feel anytime he struggled against a lot of experienced managers. Now Scott Parker's in the same decision as him, in the same sort of experience level as him. You could see Scott Parker changing things early before the penalty happened. Why does Arteta have to take forever? But I cut you off.
Well, can we just maybe think that Arteta comes from the school of thought of Wenger? Wenger never made early subs.
Yeah,
he used to wait till the 80th minute, and you'd be sitting there come on, make the change. So it may be something like that. That may just be who he is. We're thinking that he's learning on the job, but he may just say, I want these people to figure it out.
That could be what you're saying. I genuinely believe that as well. And then that becomes my problem because for me, I feel you put your faith in players that don't deserve it. And the players that do reciprocate what you want, you drop them. I don't think he's a big, I don't have a problem with someone being inexperienced. It's about learning though. If you put your hand in some fire and you get burnt, you shouldn't put your hand in there again or you're going to get hurt even more. And I feel sometimes he's been an unhealthy amount of stubbornness. I haven't seen enough consistency in the back line for me personally. Previously, there was a time when we was doing all right, everyone was playing, it's not a thing. But I just feel if you can't have a settled back 4 or 5, including Leno, then how can we really progress? We can't really do anything. And I look at midfield, yes, he hasn't been helped with Kroenke and things, but there's not a single pivot that really looks levels. There's not really any. He was a midfielder. I shouldn't really have this amount of questions over it. And there's teams that arguably our squad is better than or levels against, and they're performing better than us, or they're all galvanized. So I have sympathy for him, but it's can I really absolve him of these things when I look at it? Because he set high standards.
Yeah, he did set really high standards. Hold on real quick. I can kind of hear myself. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you perfectly.
I don't know why I'm getting echo. Okay, so basically with Arteta, I just think, he wants to play a system that some of his players can't play. And either they'll get better and be able to do it, or they'll be replaced. I think of players like Xhaka. I think of players like Leno. These are 2 players that I feel can play the way Arteta wants to play, but not at a high level or consistently enough. So they may need to be replaced eventually. But Arteta was very hell-bent on integrating a system that maybe 5 or 6 players on his team can play at a high level or consistently. And so you're seeing players like Aubameyang really kind of suffer from that. And it just kind of is his stubbornness. He wanted to play this way and he doesn't have the players for it. He even said it himself. He's 6 players away.
Don't you have to adapt to your players then?
Yeah, but you have to adapt to your players. But I think he knows he's safe enough where he can integrate this system and get the players that he knows can play it, playing it now, which is Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Odegaard if he stays, Thomas Partey, these types of players. So
historically,
yeah, he's safe. I think he makes a lot of safe choices in terms of somebody who doesn't feel like his job is on the line. So not adapting to the players that you have is a sign of safety to me. Because if you are under the caution, that you can go. Yeah, you'll play the way that that these players can play if you feel like you're under pressure. He's not doing that, so he's not under pressure.
And my big thing is, I think people do take a lot of things over the top. I do think everybody plays for him. The way they speak about him is admirable. But at the same time, I look at it, like you said, I'm of the belief where you need some new players, because several people have been here under a couple of managers. It's the same thing. But when I look at it, he's not leaning on the young players or the experienced players who have just come in to bring that new mentality. He's still, not to mention Xhaka, because I think Xhaka's actually been playing all right. But the Xhakas, Bellerin is a vice captain, whether he's going or not. David Luiz, there was talk of a new deal. People that aren't necessarily screaming long term. You mentioned Lacazette and Aubameyang, to be harsh and throw them into it. It's like, I don't really know who is his guys. Who do you rely on? It's in a nice way, you can't really read him. In a bad way, you can't really read who he likes in the squad, because he always throws a spanner in the works.
Yeah, I think he also has that. Any manager that's takes his first job ever is Arsenal, in the state in which the club is right now, is somebody that rates himself very highly. He believes in himself. Yeah, so he has an ego. All managers do. And don't get it twisted, Arteta does as well. So I think he has a level of, I can fix any player. I can fix anybody. All I have to do is just put them in this position and they'll do better. And I think that, do I think it's what?
Do you think that, because you mentioned ego, do you think that ego's harmed him?
No, because I think all managers have it. It's just he's in a situation where he's at a club that he's not at Brighton. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if he's at Brighton, he can do this Brighton, kind of stuff. And
listening.
Yeah, no offense to Brighton. I'm not trying to be like,
I know.
But he's not in a position where he can make these, have this type of ego and it not have huge ramifications. And he's a new manager. He's learning on the job. And there's times that I thought he could be more humble, like maybe how he treated Guendouzi, or maybe how he treated Saliba, and maybe not been so tough on them. But he's coming from a place where I think it's almost like, be the person that you want to be, and so he's being that elite level manager without elite players, without elite pedigree, without a lot of stuff, elite experience. And so it looks, fake it till you make it, and telling players that you feel like you're going to win the Champions League in 3 years and all that kind of stuff, because I think that's who he wants to be. And he's like, I have to embody that and do the things that I would do if I was in that position now, instead of modifying it to fit where I am at the moment. And it is problematic in certain ways, but I can understand why he's doing it. And it's to the detriment of certain players. And maybe he'll look back and think, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But that's how I view Arteta, as somebody that knows that he's going to be at a certain level, or feels like he's going to be an elite level manager, and is being that person now, even without the tools and even without the experience.
That's a great way of putting it. So do you still trust him? Is it Arteta or the players for you? I do it to all my guests. I have to ask, because I side more with Arteta than these players, purely because I'm not saying that to defend him. It's just they've been here for a while. He might prove he's not the guy, but I'd rather give Arteta a try than these players.
Yeah, it's the players. Like, it's definitely the players. That's not to say that Arteta hasn't made mistakes, but all managers make mistakes. All managers do that thing where they sub the person that you feel like they shouldn't have, or they didn't bring in the right person. That's normal. All fans complain about that stuff with their managers, even Manchester City fans. Same thing. These players have been around long enough for us to know what they're about. And for me, it's a mentality issue. I don't love the mentality. I think they're weak. No offense, but I just do. And I've been saying the same things about these players for years now, that they just don't have a winning mentality. Look at Tierney. He has a winning mentality. He's totally different than them. The way he behaves and the way he acts, completely different.
They said he tackled too hard in training when he first came. I remember hearing that.
And I'm just like, well, that's because we have a soft mentality and we don't like competition. You hear about what, Bellerin said about Alexis Sanchez. Alexis wanted to leave to win things, and whether those things are true or not, it plays itself out on the field all the time, where we're playing against Fulham. We have tons of chances, and it gets to the 15th minute and we just capitulate, and we're just like, well, let's just go flat, because we're supposed to score in the first 15 minutes. You keep going. It's just the mentality. Even somebody like El Neni, he doesn't have the right mentality. He might be a good squad player because he's safe, but his safe, mentality was, it costs us. Yeah, we need bravery. And you only get that with players like Thomas Partey and players that are, have been in teams that win. But then I see the fans do things like say that Thomas was poor because he lost the ball. And I'm like, well, when you do things that are risky, you will lose the ball. Kevin De Bruyne loses the ball like all the time. He makes bad passes all the time, but you only remember the one time that he made the pass because yeah, but he had to take the risk first, so we also have to get used to having better players in our team that play in certain ways, that carry themselves in certain ways. And we're used to the El Nenis. We're used to 97% pass completion. That doesn't mean you had a good game.
Just means you're playing safe. It means what you did with it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where I sit with the team and Arteta and all that stuff.
It's like what I always say. I think to sign for any club, you need competence. If you're a centre half, can you defend? I always say consistency, because I need you to be able to defend multiple times. And I say confidence. There's going to be times the world turns against you. Like for me, there's not a big enough siege mentality. When I look at West Ham, when I look at even Leicester, they didn't get to the final by fluke in the FA Cup. That's the one thing, because I think the players should be able to engineer that themselves, or Arteta should be able to install that. That's a bare minimum. So that's my problem with a lot of the things with our club. What do you make of Lacazette? Because his form's been superb. Sadly, he's injured, and again, we're praying for the best. Do you give him a new deal?
No, I don't. It's like we have to start making the right decisions. And, when you listen to different content creators talk, it'll sway your decision, because a lot of people there's good reasons to re-sign Lacazette. Don't get me wrong. Like the fact that we'll have really unproven talent, in the striker positions if Lacazette doesn't re-sign. Right, because you'll have Balogun, Martinelli, and Aubameyang, and Aubameyang has proven himself to be, at least this season, unreliable for certain amounts of the season. He hasn't been like that in other seasons, but now we know that there's a chance that it could happen. Exactly, but is Lacazette not in a position to be playing for a contract right now? Everybody plays. Yeah, they're going to play well because they know that they need to get re-signed or to get a move somewhere else. Exactly. So I would say, because we've been in this situation multiple times, that is probably the time to take the other road, see what happens. And then because we've done both, now we can make a decision on what's the best way for us to do it. We've never done the thing. We've never done it where, they play well and we still sell them. We always give them the new deal. And I think we should go in a different direction. Yeah, we need to do it. You can get about 20 million for Lacazette in good form, and move on from it, move Balogun up. Would it kill us? No. And I think that's the thing.
Go ahead. Let me be devil's advocate. Okay, cool. Balogun, we've decided he's going out on loan. Martinelli's that third choice striker. Lacazette's gone. Martinelli gets injured. Aubameyang's struggling. Who do we, just damn right, we need a goal in the game. Who do we take off the bench? Is there a case for Lacazette to even see out his deal purely in terms of squad depth?
I would say at the very most, you let him run his deal down, but you don't give him a new one. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't re-sign him. You can let him run his deal down. That's fine. But giving him a new deal, because the idea that he's going to sign a 1-year extension. No, he wants to solidify his future. He's going to want a certain amount that we probably shouldn't be giving him. And he's going to want multiple years. So for me, it's like, it's a no-go. And we have this, I think we have this thing where we're like, just in case, we think of the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario doesn't always happen. And I think we think that one little thing, like even like removing the manager or changing the manager is going to ruin the club, or the club is going to crumble. No, it's not. It's just something that happens. And I think sometimes we have to just take the different road and see that it's not going to kill us, so that we make it more often. At some point we need to start selling these players. I want to see Eddie gone. I want to see Lacazette go, and let's just kind of move on from this. Lacazette's not the biggest problem at the club. He's not, but re-signing him at 29 years old when he's been inconsistent. It was just like last season where he's only started
just now scoring away goals.
Exactly. So why would we act like it's such recency bias at this point, but I would say move on from Lacazette. And I like Lacazette. That's to say I like him. He's playing well. And I think at this point, I would much rather see him play than Aubameyang. But you gave Aubameyang the big contract, and Lacazette's on the wrong side of 30, and it's time to move on.
If William wasn't here, not to bring William into this, if William wasn't a thing, which he is, would you give Lacazette a new deal?
That's a good question. Probably, because then he wouldn't, then maybe it would be like one less, thing holding us back, or, but because you gave Willian and Aubameyang the money, somebody has to go.
Yeah.
And Bellerin is on decent high wages. Lacazette's on high wages as well. And this would be a chance for us to get that wage bill down to something more feasible for a club that's not really performing at the highest level. And they're both inconsistent players. Bellerin's inconsistent. Lacazette's inconsistent. We have to take everything into consideration and not just what they're doing right now. Willian was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. He stopped the growth of Pepe. Martinelli, he takes time from Martinelli. He's not scored a goal yet.
Young Reece Nelson ain't had a sniff, really.
Yeah, he's been horrendous, so somebody else will probably be sacrificed because of that, and that may be Lacazette, but we can get money for Lacazette. We can't even sell Willian at this point, so we're probably stuck with that.
We're in trouble there. And that's my problem. And you kind of touched on it. It's like with Arsenal, we kind of do this half and half thing. It might be the good or bad decision in the future to work, but it's like Maitland-Niles, for example. I actually like him. Like 1 minute he's out the door, he plays well against Liverpool. Suddenly we've changed our whole sort of thinking with him. Just make a decision. It might be the wrong decision in the future. It might be the right one, but just double down on that. So who would you like? Who stays for you? Not that we cancel everyone, but if we were to build a competent sort of team, what's the individuals, if there's any for you?
It's like on one hand.
Yeah, literally.
Couple. Obviously, Bukayo Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe. I would love for us to keep Odegaard if we could. Gabriel, Saliba, Martinelli, Thomas Partey, Marie. I think he just makes the left side. We're done with it because we have Gabriel and Marie. Tierney, obviously. That's about it. I think the rest of them, there's questions about whether we should keep them. And there's short-term and long-term goals. I'm just saying in terms of building the squad around this is the long-term. There's obviously people I would keep in the short-term just because, if we were to get Bissouma, which I feel like that's what we should be trying to do. Then you could keep Xhaka and just keep him as a rotational until he leaves, or whatever. So, because to me, Xhaka is not killing me at the moment, so. There's long-term and short-term, but you really can count the players that we're going to be able to build this squad around long-term on one hand, and that just says how imbalanced the squad actually is. I didn't even mention Aubameyang because he wasn't, I honestly wasn't 100% sure about re-signing him, not because I understand why people are we had to, but there was always this in the back of my mind. I'm like, what if he falls off a cliff? What if he does do what he's doing now? And there's been a lot of different reasons why this has probably happened. But if you weren't going to sign a creative midfielder to get the man the ball, then why'd you re-sign him? Why'd you give him the money if you weren't going to be able to support him?
And double down on him in his best years. He hasn't got many left.
Yeah. Why is he playing off on the left and running up and down the field? So I think Aubameyang, if we weren't going to do the right things with him, why did we re-sign him anyway? But yeah. Count them on one hand. I think a lot of us have the same 5 or 6 people on the list. Probably need to look at a replacement for Leno eventually. There's a lot of players.
Set up perfectly because my man noticed that you didn't say Leno. Me personally, I caught a lot of heat. One thing I've always said about Leno, I think he's overrated. When people hear that, they think I don't think he's a good keeper. He's a good keeper, up until even this season, to be fair. But last season and prior, we was losing 3-4-0. I'm saying he's still our man of the match, so I like him. I just feel he doesn't necessarily give confidence, and that goes off to the defenders. I don't feel he's vocal enough. I feel he's a good shot stopper, but sometimes he's palming it into areas in that silly. I don't think he's good enough collecting his crosses. I do think there's an unhealthy amount of arrogance about the way he plays, and I just feel there's a bit of stagnation. So where are you at with Leno, especially if we're trying to play out from the back under Mikel Arteta and Leno central to that?
I don't know. I think Leno is just one of those guys. You need to take it for what it is. He's a really good shot stopper, obviously. But he's better when the team is being battered. That's his thing. That's his bag, right? When he's asked to do play out of the back, it's just not the same, and if Arteta wants to play this way, he's going to need a goalkeeper probably more similar to Ederson that's really comfortable on the ball. And when you want to dominate possession, you're not looking for a good shot stopper. Of course, you want a competent goalkeeper, but you need somebody that could contribute with build-up play and can make the right decisions under pressure.
Literally get assists from their own half.
Exactly. So it's not something that I would look to do like right this moment, but is it something that I think needs to happen? Yeah, I do. I think eventually, but when we want to actually challenge for something, and I mean, if we're in the European Super League, I mean, you could just keep Leno anyway, because what does it really matter
There's
at
no
that point?
difference. Yeah,
You know.
you're right. Where are you at with Pepe and Gabriel? Are two? In fact, you might as well Partey, Gabriel, and Pepe. You know, our 3 summer signings, all 3 of them, anyways.
Wow, Pepe. So, like, if you had asked me this a couple months ago, like, I would have been like, we need to sell him. Like, what the heck? Like, he looks like Bambi on ice, all this type of stuff, and I think it just came back to my like initial bias about him, because when we signed him, I was very upset that we didn't get a defensive center midfielder or a center back. We ended up with David Luiz, and we ended up with without Saliba because he went on loan, and we got Danny Ceballos. I just thought, we need to build the core. Like, what are we doing? Why are we getting a winger? This doesn't make sense. And then Emery asked for Zaha, and you bring him Pepe, and they're not similar in any way, but the fact that they're wingers, they're not similar. And the fact that they're both Ivorian, there's nothing similar about the players to me at all. So I thought it was a misstep. And then for 72 million, it was like, what the heck is this? So I was also like, when a player comes in, and you already kind of have an idea about them, you're already a little apprehensive. Yeah, he's already kind of like, I need you to do something, so I was always really harsh on him. And then I think he was playing pretty poorly, but I think he's the type of player that you need to know how to manage him. He's a modern player. He's not like the old players where they can manage themselves. He needs an arm around the shoulder. You can tell he's sensitive. Yeah, he needs to play more, and he needs to play consistently. If you had asked me now, like, would I want to sell him? No, of course not. I think he has such good talent, and he complements Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe and these players really well. But if Arteta doesn't see him in his plans, and he's not going to give him the playing time that he deserves, and he's going to be playing under the Williams, and, he's going to be not getting consistent game time, then I do think we would have to look to move him on, because we're never going to be able to recoup any of that money. True. If he's continuously sitting on the bench, he needs to be nurtured. And I think he deserves to start a lot more than he does.
In time, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he wasn't fit for yesterday's game, then okay. But I think he may have even had a shout to start yesterday.
Him and Partey should have started. Take them off after 60 minutes.
Yeah. So I love Pepe. He's one of my favorite players, just based on, I think, talent-wise, he's probably one of our most talented players. We don't see it that often because he's one of those where he looks so weird and he looks shaky, and then he just does something. He does the things that he's like a straight up baller. Like, that's just what he is. He's not like Saka, where Saka's a consistent repeatability, do the same things over and over again and do them well. Pepe will kind of be looking weird
in the moments.
Yeah, the basics are not really his thing.
Yeah.
But when he does, like that goal that he scored in the Europa League, where he just like kind of hit it with his right foot first time, really quick, boom, in the corner. I was like, you can't teach that, so I'd like to see Pepe stay. But, if Arteta doesn't want to play him, then what do you do then?
Yeah, that's sad. And Gabriel?
I love Gabriel. I think he's had a mixed bag of a season. When everybody was kind of hyping him up, I was thinking, well, let's just see first, season in the Premier League. He's not that great at distribution. That's one of his bigger flaws, but he's our best one-on-one defender. He can be rash, but that can be kind of coached out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Arteta has some work to get him in the right place, but I do think he's who we need to find a partner for. If it's not Saliba, it needs to be somebody else. And
that's why I want a center half of experience personally.
I like him. I do, so I don't have an issue with Gabriel. I think he's just a typical 22-year-old player that's not quite ready to have the burden all on his shoulders. And he does better with Luiz. But that makes the question, like, who do you play into the end of the season? Because if Luiz is out and Gabriel only really plays well with Luiz, he's not going to play with Marie and doesn't play well with Holding. Do you just play Holding and Marie?
You probably do until that looks shaky, which it has done at times under Marie. I can't even lie. What do you make of Partey?
Oh my gosh, I love Thomas Partey. So anybody that knows me knows that, there's just certain players that you go to bat for no matter what, even if you're, that they didn't play well, you're going to find a way to
Defend
manipulate
them
it.
no matter what. There's extreme
Yeah.
bias around them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like
He's
that
just,
with Saka.
yeah, that's my guy. Like, I love him so much. Begged for him to be at Arsenal for like 2 years and was almost about to cry when we signed him because I just could not believe that we have this player in our squad. I would just say to Arsenal fans, give him time. Adaptation is important for any player, even if they're world-class or not. And there's just a difference between when he's on the field and not. He's obviously had injury problems that could not have been foreseen because he didn't have an injury record before.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing to, pay the release clause and feel like somebody's going to change the entirety of your season and you're sitting in ninth and he's barely played. But if you look at the glimpses of what he's been able to do and what he's been able to produce, I mean, we talk about how great Odegaard was against West Ham. Well, that's because Thomas Partey passed him the ball 19 times.
Bossing it. Yeah, absolutely. Bossed it in the midfield.
Yeah. No, I love him. I can't wait to see what he does. I think we're so lucky to have this player, you guys. Like, we're so lucky. Right. Just give him time, and I think he'll come good. If he's not amazing, he'll at least be good. I don't think he's not gonna be crap, so let's just wait it out.
Facts. Last question. What's your hopes for the summer?
Oh, that we sign Odegaard full-time, permanent.
Great answer. Yeah, I'd love that.
That's our priority. That particular player, we need a creative midfielder, but I think he fits us like a glove. I don't see any other players. You mentioned Buendia. What's the likelihood of us being able to bring him in now that they've been promoted, and he'll cost a lot of money. Plus he also plays off to the right. And then you have players like Awa, hasn't had a great season, hasn't been it. Well, I mean, I would say that Odegaard fits us better, but if we didn't get him, Awa would probably be a good choice.
You don't think Odegaard could be the 10, Awa the 8? Could use that where we've got
It depends on the assignment, of course. There's some teams that you're not going to be able to play that system against. We've been playing around with that system in the last couple of weeks, with Partey as the lone DM. But we have to have most of the possession, and we need to be playing against a team that's inferior to us 100%. Because we don't have the center back pairing or the fullbacks to play that way either. In my opinion, I think we need faster center backs for that. We need a Saliba or somebody on that right-hand side to give us more stability, because when you're playing with a lone DM, it's really, you're exposed, for the counterattacks and all that kind of stuff, but I do think that the midfield long-term could look like 2 8s, and a 6, or 10 and 8 and a 6. It can look that way instead of 2 DMs. It can, but we need the right players. I would like to see Odegaard first, and then maybe get an actual DM, because we don't have anybody of a similar profile to Partey. Yeah. And without him, we look dead without him in terms of athleticism. So I actually would go with Basuma. Like, if I had to choose between Awa and Basuma for that next midfield position after Odegaard, I'd choose Basuma.
Oh, I can't lie, I hear you, but I'm biased to Awa. He's one of them guys, man. I've just sold myself the dream on this guy and representing us at the Emirates, so I'll go with him. But you're right, 100.
Yeah, it'll come back this summer. We'll have the Awar news. We'll have that back. It'll happen. So you can get caught up in it again. But that's just my preference. And then can we not see Smith Rowe in that role? Do we have to buy Awar? I mean, they pretty much can do similar things. And if you're talking about Awar comps, I'd actually probably go for somebody more like Nkunku. I actually like him more than Awar for that position to play off wide and also play in the midfield too, so it just depends. Awar has not been pulling up trees, this season. So
it's bound to happen after that season. I think
I didn't like his attitude. I just felt like something's off about this guy, but if he came to the Emirates, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, we got Awar. Like, I'd be like, okay, cool, let's see what you do, but that's just my opinion.
That's deep, man. Let's hope Awa can prove you wrong in that regard. But I've loved having you here. I've really appreciate it. Could you let them know where to find you again? I've dropped a link in the chat for you.
You guys just go to YouTube and go in the search bar and just put She Knows Arsenal in there. She Knows Arsenal, Jessica, She Knows Arsenal podcast, whatever. I will pop up. You'll see my face. You'll see my content. It's all there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Jessinho. So it's Jess, and then just like Ronaldinho, INHO. And yeah, I'm there. Follow me for polls and fun banter and all that kind of stuff. Be respectful. I don't play that, you know, but yeah, come follow me on Twitter and let's have fun.
Exactly, you know what to do. Like I said, it's been a pleasure having you here. I'd love to have you back here. But for now, people, we're out. We're out.
Bye.
Peace.